In this tutorial, you'll find a lot of information regarding the storyboard process and design. You'll also hear a lot of references to the book publishing projects for KVEC in the past. Don't let those references confuse you or become overwhelmed. Just pay attention to the planning and all the information regarding that in this tutorial, and you'll be fine. This is called Owen Owl's Wise Words. Now, I showed you a little bit about this earlier today, but the interesting thing about this book is that it gives you a great example of how color is used and why penciling your finished page is important when it comes to taking your time and using your storyboard, using the tools you've already created in order to produce that final page, okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to use a storyboard that I designed for this tutorial, and we're going to create a finished page together today here in the Holler Studio. And for all of you who have not got on the Holler Studio and participated very much, I hope that you will. I hope you'll consider getting onto the website, communicating, sharing ideas, asking questions. It's all very, very important. That's a part of being the community process. What I have here in my hand is a storyboard that I just finished for an author's book that I'm working on. This is the most current storyboard that I've finished. I'm currently working on another storyboard for a book called Dance of the Fireflies by Mary Powell Wagner. But this storyboard here is from an author that I can't tell you a lot about right now, but that's going to be revealed pretty soon. But this book is called Holding the Light. Now, if you see here, there's boxes on these pages. Now, these boxes, each one of those represent a page for my book. By now, you should have something similar to this. Whether you're working on a graphic novel, a comic book, whatever the template you chose, you should have a storyboard. You should also have this, which is the character design. Basically, character design, it just means that you're drawing out your characters on a page. You know what they look like before you start working on your final pages. Character design is really important. It goes hand in hand with your storyboard. In the storyboard, I've asked you to be very, very rough, not a lot of detail. Remember, we talked about this. So on your storyboard, I asked you to draw circles and basic shapes. So here's an example of what you might have on your storyboard. You might have a basic shape here to represent the characters, okay? And we'll have a few here sitting in chairs, maybe. Okay, so there's a few characters there, all setting, and we could put little squares in front of them to represent desks, maybe, okay? I'm just kind of putting this together as an example. This is what your storyboard should look like. You didn't have to be go into a lot of detail with your storyboard. Up here we could put a larger desk. Maybe this is for the teacher. Up here, all right, so this could be an example of one of your pages from your storyboard. There's not a lot of detail. But when you combine your storyboard with your character design, you have all the blueprints to knowing exactly what your page will look like once you're finished. And that is very important, okay? So let's go ahead now, and what we're going to do, we're going to design a page from a book that I just come up with out of the top of my head before starting this tutorial. It's going to be about a tiger, okay? So let's go ahead and walk through this process together, all right? First thing we're going to do, we're going to look at our storyboard page. All right, so what I'm going to do, since we don't have the storyboard created for the tiger, I'm going to go ahead and draw out basically what the storyboard page would look like if we did. So here's the head of my tiger. I'll put this for the belly. Here's one arm coming down here, another arm coming down here. Got a leg coming down this way, and a leg back here, okay? Now, believe it or not, this is going to turn into a finished page of my book, all right? Also, now we have the, imagine this is one box. This is one of your pages of your, one page of your storyboard here. Just pretend with me. Now we're going to incorporate our setting. This is stuff you already should have done. I'm just going to go over this to give you an example. I'm going to draw some background setting in here. Tigers are often found in jungles. if you were doing a completely fictional story, you may have a tiger as a character living in a neighborhood or something like that. But for the purpose of this, we're going to pretend that this is in its natural habitat, okay? And natural habitat for a tiger is a jungle, or there's also zoos, right? So here we're going to have what we're going to imagine to be our finished page. We're going to draw this as a stream of water coming down. And out here we could put some mountains coming up and then be some more foliage or greenery here, okay? So I want you to imagine with me that what we're looking at right here is a finished page of our storyboard, okay? This is what our storyboard page for, let's call this page 1, all right? Now there's one very important thing that I asked you to do on every single panel or box of your storyboard, whether it's comic book, graphic novel, picture book, or chapter book. You also needed to think, where are the words going to appear on this page? Now for me, for the purpose of this as an example, I'm going to put my words in this area right here. Let's see. Right here. This is where my words are going to appear on my page. So if you look at this page and imagine this as a storyboard box for my finished page 1, you're going to see that I have the character here very roughly drawn. You're going to have the setting very roughly drawn. And you're going to know where the location of your words, where they're going to appear. That's the things you need to know before starting your penciled page. Let's say you're going to use a picture book, for example. Okay? Start thinking about what is going to appear on this page. Okay? Let's pretend this is a page of your book right here. What is going to appear on that page? And you can also get really, really fancy with this stuff, because you know how a book opens out into 2 pages? You can take a book, pull it off the shelf, or pull it off your shelf at home. You open it up, and you have a left side and a right side, usually, right? Unless you're looking at the back cover or the front cover. You have a left side and a right side. So the pages connect like this, don't they? So you have 2 pages. See that? This part down the middle right here is the spine. So while you're designing your book, you can start thinking about stuff like, maybe I want to do an illustration of a countryside. And I have a road coming down like this. Maybe this is the first few pages of my book. And the road comes down like this, and then there's a hill coming up. And you can actually draw on 2 sides of your book, creating this vast landscape that your characters are going to be introduced to the reader in. This is the opening of the book. Here's a farmhouse up here with windows. Okay, and you can see how this sort of works. There's a porch here. There's the roof. There's mountains behind it. Okay, and the road's coming up this way. I asked you to look at different books that you're interested in last week and start to get an idea about what you like and what you don't like. So if you're going to do a picture book, I asked you to look at various picture books, remember? The reason I wanted you to do that is I wanted you to see how the illustrator places the different elements of their story on a page. So you can see how this works here. Right? There's a house up there, and then there's a road coming up. There's mountains in the background. And this could be there's 2 different pages of my book, but those 2 pages can make up one illustration, right? One, what we call in the industry a spread, a 2-page spread, okay? You can create that in your book. Don't just think about one page to page and this illustration for this page, this illustration for that page. Be creative on how you place your artwork in your book, okay? Now let's talk about chapter books for a second. Chapter books, you're at an advantage, but you have to have a lot more words. You place illustrations throughout the book at different locations. How do you choose where to place an illustration? Now, typically, for a chapter book, you may want to place an illustration at the beginning of a chapter, obviously, right? So let's say this is 1 page of my chapter book, right? So I may put chapter 3 here, okay? And then I may have the illustration here. I may have an illustration here, all right? And let's say it's introducing this particular chapter, right? So we have a character that we're drawing here, and this character is holding a child, okay? And this is an illustration to introduce this chapter of our chapter book. But then we have other pages following that. How do you decide where to place an illustration in a chapter book? You remember those ingredients we talked about earlier? Anytime that you introduce a character, anytime that you have, let's say, conflict to arise, where there's a problem, anytime you move them from one setting to another or establish the first setting, all of these important ingredients, okay, are good opportunities in a chapter book to show what it looks like visually to the reader, especially the resolutions. At the end, when the hero overcomes the protagonist, which is a big fancy word for villain, okay, and the hero overcomes the villain, or if they don't, hopefully they do, though, in our workshop, right? We want the heroes to win. But when that happens, that's a great opportunity to show that in a drawing, okay? Now we're going to talk about graphic novels, too. Graphic novels are becoming more and more popular with students. They are very, just a great method of sharing stories and language arts through a visual format. The graphic novels are very popular. Typically, a graphic novel will look like a standard comic book page, okay? Usually, it's what we call portrait. Do you remember we talked about that last time? It's more tall than it is wide, the pages. And let's say we're going to go ahead and draw another page onto here. On these pages, if you're creating a graphic novel, you have to have panels, right? And the panels are the boxes that are, what we said last time, that our action or our story takes place in, okay? You have to start thinking about how to position all of these panels and everything together. And you can start planning from the very beginning of writing your story. You can say, page 1, this is what's happening on page 1. Page 2, this is what's happening on page 2. So you know exactly what you have to put on those pages. But we started talking about all of this layout principles with storyboards. And I had to go ahead and talk about the different formats for a second, because your storyboard, how you create your storyboard, really depends on what you're creating. But this is what I want everybody to do as you're writing your story, okay? I want you to, first, you're going to draw boxes, all kinds of boxes on a piece of paper. Everybody work on this for your story, okay? I'm going to draw these boxes, and what these boxes are going to represent are pages from my book. And I'm using a picture book as my example right now, because that's the fastest and easiest way. You can do this for a graphic novel. So here's a series of pages, okay? This is page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6. Okay? There's got to be more pages in this book. In each one of these boxes, we need to draw with stick figures, okay, what's going to be happening on each page. That's a storyboard. You have to determine what's happening on each page by your story. See how this all connects? So on page 1, you should know exactly what's going to be taking place. On page 2, you should know what's going to be taking place. And you start to sketch that out with stick figures. Okay, for the purpose of this, we'll say that, let's say a student is getting out of school. Okay, so I'm going to draw this stick figure with their backpack and a door behind them that's open. Okay, that'll be the school and some steps. All right, this is a basic outline of what's going to be appearing on my first page. Okay, it's a stick figure, and I need to know what's going to be happening on each page. So that's a storyboard. A storyboard is like the blueprint for your work, right? You will create your own storyboard, and you'll use your story to create it, so that before you ever start to draw on a piece of paper, you want to know exactly what's going to appear on that page before you start, okay? I hope everybody's clear on that. It's real important. Plan your book and know exactly what's going to appear on each page before you start. Okay? Everyone should be working on this right now in preparation for next week. Next week you should have already started your storyboard. You should have most of your storyboard actually drawn out, since your story should be completed and done by next week, because we're starting to draw our pages. I want you to be thinking about how to position illustrations in interesting ways. I want you to think about also, and this is really important too, you're going to be thinking about where will your words appear on that page, okay? Because you may have artwork created for an illustration, but you may not know exactly where your words are going to appear. So all of these things come together to create a book, okay? No one just sits down and draws a picture on a piece of paper and tells a story as they go along. I'm going to know where my words will appear. So let's say my words are going to appear down here. This is for storyboards. I'm going to know where my characters are going to be on this page. Okay? I'm going to know what they're going to be doing. I'm going to know the setting for every page. All right? And this is really important. The students that were successful last workshop, they had wonderful storyboards for their works. Okay? And these storyboards do not have to be anything really detailed or special, but you need to draw out your work and know what's going to appear, no matter if you're working on a graphic novel, a picture book, or a chapter book. Okay? Know what's going to appear on every page of your book. Planning is important.